Morning, everybody. How we doing today? It's Thursday, ending up in Midwest, middle of April, 2022. First of all, I want to apologize. Some of my episodes lately have been flipped, so you're seeing the room backwards. The records I'm showing you are going to be showing this mirror image. I don't know why. My phone died the other day. Did this automatic update, and a lot of things are being weird on my phone right now. I'm not getting texts from my wife. I'll see the alert for it. I'll open it up, and it won't be in my text conversations. I'll get some of them, but there's a lot of weird things going on. I got to figure it out. My wife will probably actually end up figuring it out, but she's busy, so I think I can fix it in editing if I don't forget to. I think I fixed 2 episodes ago, but I forgot to fix last episode. I didn't even realize I was doing it at first. That means I actually kind of watched and edited those videos without even noticing it. That's how much I get listening to what I'm saying and the content. But so I'll try to figure that out. My apologies. Again, I'm not super tech savvy. My specialty is the music. Even as a DJ, I've never been a gear guy and the needles and all that. I have a guy that I trust. It's just like, I need new needles. He tells me what I want to spend, The music's always been, I got into DJing because I was a guy who collected records, not because I wanted to be a DJ. I had DJ friends that said, you got a lot of records. You should come down and play some records at the club. So it was never about me being a DJ, listen to me. It was always about, hey, this is great music, listen to this with me. And trying not to be self-indulgent, trying to embrace people, trying to find people with some middle ground and bribe them with stuff I know they're going to like or already do like, and then say, here's something you probably don't like, but do you trust me now? And if you win people's confidence and embrace them, they'll embrace you in return, and you'll have this energy build in the room. It's the most important thing to DJing is just connecting with people that are there. On another note, we had a milestone last weekend, and I mentioned it in a little post, but we hit 500,000 views, 500,000 views, and we hit 100,000 hours of watch time. Those are both pretty good numbers. Proud of that. Thank you guys. Thank you all for watching and contributing, being part of this channel. I try to keep it, as fresh and as honest and as our own slice in time as much as we can. There's a lot of other channels talking vinyl out there, and so thank you for making it over to mine. And what I actually think of as ours. I try to respond to as many messages and comments as I can and make it our community, not just a me thing. Once again, I think that's important. You got to kind of meet people in the middle and make them feel like they know stuff, and because they do, and they'll teach me stuff. And a great audience as a DJ can also teach you stuff. Remind you of a song you forgot about or didn't even know about. Like I hit that, slipped between the cracks, or from an area you weren't that knowledgeable about. So once you get that bond going, it can be really reciprocal. It's reciprocal. It's very nice. But those are great milestones. 500,000 views for a channel talking really pretty much straight jazz. We don't meddle a lot in other things. We talk a little social stuff and about race and history at times because it applies to the music. But we don't really delve into other hot button subjects necessarily. We're not trying to get all the clickbait stuff. We talk pretty much real jazz, which is a really awesome thing. I think that there's that many people out there that really can digest real jazz on a regular basis. So I think it's kept the channel somewhat unique, and it's a place to go for a finite crowd, but it's a dedicated crowd. It's never going to be a viral sensation. I'm never going to be 10 million subscribers. There's not that many jazz fans in the world, I don't think. So, and not everyone agrees with me all the time, and that's absolutely fine. And I don't always agree with myself. Opinions change, thoughts change. You grow. Things you used to love, you don't love as much, and then things that you once sneered at, you kind of find an appreciation for. That always can change. Things shouldn't be static. You shouldn't never have just like, I made my mind up and that's it. But anyway, thank you to everybody. It's a great honor to be a part of your guys' lives. I mean that sincerely. And I'm honored to be able to do this, to be able to tell people I have a YouTube channel that's moderately successful. We're not PewDiePie, we're not, but we're doing our thing and we're solid. So thanks again to everyone for who's contributed and helped make me feel this is a valuable resource for people. Next, I want to talk about a funk band. And I don't delve into other genres super much. You know, I'll talk new release here or there. We talked about Mute. We talked about the new Tears for Fears. I like to talk about Rudimental and so on, who I think are the coolest band that a lot of people, especially in America, don't know about. They're pretty successful in the UK and Europe from what I've seen in the charts and stuff. Rudimental's fantastic. But I'm going to talk about an old funk band. And I kind of earned my stripes as a DJ playing funk and R&B. As I was collecting records, disco funk era has this production and sensibility to it that's fun. I mean, Blame on the Boogie. It puts you in a happy headspace. And so as a DJ, when you're reading people's responses, you play Nirvana or you play Radiohead, and it's kind of a somber, you know what I mean? Some guy smiles at you, it's like, yeah, I love this song. But if you play something like Blame on the Boogie, or Very Superstitious, it's a different feeling. It's joyous. It's kind of bubbly, up-tempo, perky, which is, again, it's ironic that the oppressed group in our country makes the music that's kind of uplifting and full of joy. But that's because they want to live in that place as a sense of refuge, as that mask to shield them from the terror of everyday life. And when you don't live in that fear, you kind of process your fears and anxieties differently, and your music reflects different things. And so here in America, it's been very obvious as I get deeper into DJing, how the music of the black community here in this country made has always been kind of fun. Prince, Michael Jackson, James Brown, swing music. It's uplifting. It's positive. It's got a great beat to it that's danceable. It's sexual. And it's kind of its magic, I think, ingredient is the sexuality of rhythm and blues. It's got a pulse, a rhythm that you need to take your socks off for. You understand what I'm saying? And don't go messing it up. Don't go clapping, you know what I mean? I've seen white folks try to clap at gigs, at concerts. We can mess up some clapping. You know what I mean? We can mess up some clapping. You could put 10 white folks on a dance floor and bodies would be banging into each other. And I'm making generalities here, but this is kind of just a fun observation. You can put 100 black folk on that same dance floor. There's just lots of space for everybody somehow. You put one drunk cougar, especially if she got leopard print on somewhere, a scarf even with leopard print, and a glass of white wine, people getting bumped into and knocked over. That's how that's going to go. But the music was fun, and it kind of spoke to me. It kind of reached me as a person, as a human. As a person that was empathetic and a student of history, I just felt something in this music that was, like I've said before, forgiving, embracing, forgetful. We don't want to necessarily focus on the negative. We're trying to have a good time tonight. It's almost overcompensating to put us in a place where we can be joyful and dance and think about sex and a good time and think about our Creator both sexually and spiritually. Like, that's kind of the solace is I need to believe in God a lot because I got a lot of struggle, and man, I gotta believe in sex a lot because it's my heaven, it's my ecstasy. And so funk was this music that really was an important step in my development as a listener. And of course it comes out of soul and rhythm and blues, and James Brown's like the real architect. You know what I mean? He's the real architect of the spatial openness of the funk. And how the pattern is minimal parts by pieces that link together into this groove, this pattern, this shape. But then it repeats in lockstep. Like a sample, like a modern dance track, like a lot of the electronic and pop music we hear, funk was a natural, organic repetition of a pattern and a shape. And you might have the bass doing a shape like that, and then the horns doing a shape like this, and the guitar doing a color like that. But what you end up with this photo, this image, but then it repeats and repeats and repeats and repeats and repeats. And then James Brown can just kind of, good God, whatever he has to say, it doesn't matter because he's just feeling that groove. It's got the gospel in it, it's got the black church in it, it's got the black reverend in it. It's got the call and response of often the the church and the choir, the reverend and the choir. It's just this magnanimous music that's just attractive. And as I dug deeper into the funk, it was really transcending. It was really revelatory. It kind of electrified me as a kid raised in Canada. You know, you heard Brick House. You heard some Billy Ocean, Caribbean Queen. You know what I mean? R&B that crossed into the pop charts is what we heard in Canada for the most part. You know, and even in white America, living in North Dakota when I first moved here, you didn't really hear rhythm and blues. You heard the poppier side of rhythm blues that would chart on both charts. MC Hammer, he blew up in 1988, whatever that 89, everywhere. Don't hurt him, Hammer. Don't hurt him. But that was everywhere. So even white America and country ass North Dakota with Hank Williams Jr. and Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, MC Hammer was still hurting them. See what I'm saying? But there's a lot of rhythm blues that doesn't cross over into the pop charts that white folks just don't know. And there's moments where the charts kind of coalesce. Disco from 75 to 79. White folks and black folks do a lot of the same music. We're dancing to a lot of the same hits. And trust me, there's a political correlation. As we've become a Republican, Ronald Reagan era kind of nation, there's a backlash against disco, which is somewhat organic, but it's also somewhat artificially driven by race and the uncomfortable nature of white America with interracial dating and coupling. And that was an inevitable result of the dance scenes that were happening. And so there's a natural backlash against that correlation. And what ends up happening is the rhythm and blues charts, again, separate from the pop charts. And the 80s go one way for pop and one way for rhythm and blues. And there's a lot of great rhythm and blues, by the way, from 80, 81, 82, 83, SOS Band, Cameo, Zap. All these bands are making these great Daz Band. And it's all music that white folks, for the most part, don't really know. It wasn't really till Prince and Michael and MTV come along that, you know, Thriller, boom, that puts R&B back on the scene, kind of. Janet Jackson kind of does her thing. Prince, Purple Rain, and, you know, where he goes in the 80s. That was the rhythm and blues that was crossing over that white folks know from that era. But there's a lot of stuff, even like a band like the Commodores, Brick House. White folks will know Brick House, but they won't know the rest of the catalog. They'll know Easy Like a Sunday Morning. You know what I mean? But they're not going to know a lot of deeper hits, Too Hot to Trot, Slippery When Wet. They're not going to know that stuff. And they're great stuff, and a lot of them were big hits on the rhythm and blues charts. And so part of what I learned to do was look at the rhythm and blues charts as well, if not more so than the pop charts. I ignored a lot of the pop charts as a DJ and kind of focused on their R&B hits because it was what created fun and actually kind of really started to bring in an audience. But the band I want to talk to you about today is the Ohio Players. And they're very much fulcrum through this entire thing. They are probably the coolest group that the average white American doesn't know by name. Everybody knows a song or two or three by them that had success in the pop charts, have a kind of a shelf life in pop culture. They show up in film soundtracks. Fire, boom, boom, boom. But that shows up in films quite a lot. So people are kind of familiar with that. People will hear Love Roller Coaster. Red Hot Chili Peppers did Love Roller Coaster. That song shows up in films. So they kind of know that song. Most people couldn't tell you who did Love Roller Coaster. Most people couldn't tell you who did Fire. I Want to Be Free. Snoop Dogg sampled it. It also shows up in films, in those moments in films where that song's just a perfect thing. I want to be free. Great song. Most people couldn't tell you it's the Ohio Players. Even a lot of the black community doesn't always know some of who they did these songs. And the Ohio Players is a kind of a name that doesn't really stick on your tongue, unfortunately. But they're undoubtedly one of the coolest R&B funk bands to hit the scene. They have some crossover success and appeal. They made some of the coolest album covers of the time. They were great musicians. They are kind of what jazz grafts itself into. Earth, Wind, and Fire and the Ohio Players are two great examples of guys that were kind of jazz roots, started off in jazz bands as Simon, as fusion and rhythm and blues and rock kind of all fused together. This funk scene kind of comes about, and these young kids no longer said we're going to be jazz, we're going to be rhythm and blues, which goes back into the 40s and 50s where a lot of young black cats went on R&B. They went blues. They went a way that was more danceable than jazz was going. And this fusion R&B, elements of jazz, great horn sections, great arrangements. There's a lot that is replicated from swing and borrowed from all the dance movements that happened before in the black community. And so Ohio Pleasures is this really cool group. And I'm going to show you their album covers real quick because I think their album covers are as important as some of the music. We're going to go through them real quick and then we'll move on to something else. So this is Ohio Players. It didn't come out till later. It was a session they recorded for Capitol, and it didn't really get released until much, much later because Capitol was starting to have, because they were being very successful elsewhere. Not really an important thing to find. It's their early Westbound stuff. And that's Pain from 1972. It's a very charged album cover, sexually. There's the band. And it just shows you, a very real testament of where the black community was with the urban plight that was kind of taking over and the oppression that they felt. This is Ecstasy. And the Black Men in Chains. It's just a powerful graphic image. Again, it's on the Westbound label. This one's from 1973. These Westbound records are fairly tough to find. And those album covers are interesting because they have kind of a duality to them. They have kind of a sexuality and a social political commentary wrapped up in them. The next one from 73 was called Pleasure. And I think this one just has a female on the cover. And again, it starts with just her, which seems rather innocuous, but then the political side of it with her being in chains. Very powerful stuff visually, and great players sonically. They're just great. This one was called Climax. It's the fourth of their deal with see again there's the image of something romantic with something much more charged in the back there. These records weren't full of hits necessarily. I think Ecstasy was a minor hit. It was a song called Funky Worm, which came out on the Pleasure record. That was really kind of an underground hit, but Funky Worm's also been sampled by a lot of hip-hop artists, and it's fairly popular in that. See if I can find it for you real quick. And there's that groove going on. Me and the Ohio Players gonna tell you about a worm. Funkiest worm. I don't want to get this episode taken down, so we're gonna turn it down. Again, this is the greatest hits on Westbound. Again, the beautiful woman with the duality of the politically charged album cover. It makes them collectible in themselves. Again, it's kind of James Brown minimal, but here's what really got this song recognized. Because it was holy, it sounds something like this. And that's West Coast hip hop. That's legendary. Great sounds. Like 9 cans of shaving powder. What are you talking about, dude? There's also a few other things on Westbound. This was some outtakes, Rattlesnake, and then the early years was just kind of the greatest hits. And that stuff Westbound issued after they moved to Mercury and started becoming very popular. And this is a great example of a band that the label they were at influenced them greatly. So it wasn't just a thing where if you're a jazz group, the label you're on is going to impact how you sound and what you have to do. When they went from Westbound to Mercury, their sound, it just becomes so polished and so perfect. And again, the albums have a very sexual nature. They lose some of the political charge here, but they have beautiful women always. And there's all the different band members. And they have great names too, like Sugar and Diamond, Jones, Diamond, Billy, Sugarfoot, Pee Wee, Satch, and Merv. And seriously, there's some of the coolest tracks ever. Skin Tight was a big hit. Of course, there's edited 7-inch versions of these songs because on the albums, they're mostly 7, 8-minute jams, a lot of these tracks, with some incredible playing, incredible horn work. This was their kind of big breakout. That record there was 74, Skin Tight. Fire is also in 1974. Again, just a wonderful album cover. Kids had these posters on their walls. She's putting that fire out for sure. There's the band again. And this, of course, had the big hit Fire that we talked about. That was kind of a proto-disco track in 74. I Want to Be Freeze on this as well, which is, again, shoot, 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 shoot. You'll recognize that if you heard it. Fantastic stuff. Big hits. Successful crossover, rhythm and blues, with roots and jazz. Honey was their third big record. This one's in 75. And again, this is just an outstanding record. There's a cover with the gal sipping on the honey. And then on the inside, she's done sipping. She gets to work with that honey. See what I'm saying? The honey comes everywhere. And then, boom, there's the group. Same guys, Diamond, Merv, Sugarfoot, all them cats. And this record has got the great track Fop, which was a pretty big funk hit. And then Sweet Sticky Thing is one of the coolest jazz R&B tracks. If you don't know Sweet Sticky Thing, you should dig that out. It's fantastic. And then the song Love Roller Coaster is on this record. I think some great playing on this. It's got some of the same tones and sounds as what George Benson and Grover Washington, those guys were doing at that point. But again, when I started playing for that black crowd in 2010, 2011, 2012, this was the song Sweet Sticky Thing. Famous riff, beautiful stuff. It was the songs like this that I was going deeper than the pop charts. I was a white kid playing deep R&B cuts that really raised some eyebrows and made people go, what's this guy doing? And that's partly how the night got so big. And we started actually kind of avoiding the pop crossover songs and went straight for the R&B songs by the end. The last few years, we were just playing straight deep R&B stuff. This is Contradiction, I think for 77 now. She's feeding the horse the apple. Again, on the inside, the stuff of dreams for young men. There was no internet porn sites in those days. This is Angel. This is from 77. Wants to fall on me. But there's Angel. And there's the wonderful group on the inside. These are serious, serious records that I think if you're a jazz fan and you want something rhythm and blues, but you don't want something corny, Ohio Players is a great place to go. This is Mr. Mean. These start getting a little later, towards the end of Disco Jazz Lady. Next one's called Everybody Up. And then this is this great 3-record greatest hits that's got most of the big songs on it. That'd be a great place to start if you can find that. But Ohio Players are awesome. And they have a lot of great songs, a lot of fun songs that you can play at parties and events, especially their Mercury stuff. That Westbound stuff's cool, especially because of the cover art and Funky Worm. But when you start getting into the Westbound, the Mercury stuff, the Mercury stuff's so excellent. And those records will just, there's instrumental stuff that's very much jazz crossover. Fantastic, fantastic stuff. And you'll see how black music doesn't have these clean-cut changes. It kind of all gradually morphs and shifts into things. And some of the branches that we think of most as jazz today, like the avant-garde and the bebop and even the hard bop, a lot of those are branches that kind of withered and died. The main trunk of black music is still very alive and vibrant, and this was the succession of a lot of the most popular music out there. So I wanted to talk about them today because I think they're just outstanding. I think a lot of people would really love them and will dig them if you give them a chance. And you will know half dozen of their songs from films, from movies, from television shows. They're just very ubiquitous pop culture songs that very few people can go, oh, that's the Ohio Players. Again, the name is just kind of sounds like, the athletic club. You don't really know what it is. But they're just outstanding players that play and write and produce and arrange and compose in a lot of the same ways that you can hear with Basie. And I was talking about that group Mute the other day. I was showing my wife Sing, Sing, Sing. how a lot of the shapes by the rhythm sections and the horn sections are the same in modern electronic music and dubstep as they were in the swing era. And when you hear this live band Mute playing techno house, deep house music, you really see the shapes naturally unfold by the different horns playing, different rhythm sections playing, and it allows you to kind of correlate it easier, this electronic music, to where it sounds a lot like the swing music that came before it. It's really easy to make that correlation when you see it live like that. So, it's great stuff. Da-da-da. Hopefully I didn't leave that up too loud there, because that's a pretty big hit, but it's great stuff. I'm a big fan of Ohio Players, and if this does get censored, I'll probably just put it up and not monetize it, because I think it's a cool band to talk about. So anyway, good stuff on the channel. Appreciate you all. I got one more thing to show you real quick, and then we're going to move on. In mid-50s, there was kind of this development happening among some of the bass players, guys like Harry Babison and guys like Oscar Pettiford. They started dabbling with the cello. And this is one of the first recording sessions of that development in jazz, the cello. And they actually have a bass player on the record, Joe Comfort. And so you have a bass player with two other bass players playing cello. But the bass players are allowed to play melody in a lead sense, because there's a bass player holding down the roots and the anchor, the low end. And so they don't have to be rhythmic and percussive. They can be more melodic and lead instruments, the cellists, I think it is. Cellists. But Pettiford, again, is one of the geniuses of the instrument and real innovative. And Harry Babison was a West Coast guy, instrumental in starting a little West Coast label called Nocturne, which makes some great stuff with the West Coast scene. Babison, I guess, actually I'm friends with his son, Vaughn. And Vaughn says that Babison dabbled in the cello first, and him and Pettiford kind of worked together, and this session becomes a thing. It's a cool 7-inch. It's on the Imperial label, which I think was out of Los Angeles, if my memory serves. I only have a little bit of Imperial stuff. Beautiful little 7-inch. It's in nice condition. It's a cool little piece. And I was pretty excited to get it last year. And I played it again yesterday, and I was like, oh, this is really, really enjoyable. And so I figured I'd mention it in today's episode. It's one more of those moments in jazz that if you dig and look, these old pieces are out there, you know. And I don't think I paid more than $10 for this. I think I got a pretty good price on it, if I remember. So anyway, Ohio Players, fantastic. Thanks for all the views. We're going to get back to my Legacy series coming up. I think next I'm going to do Grant Green. I was going to do it today, but I had other things on my mind I wanted to talk about. So y'all be safe. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Appreciate you all. Talk to you soon. Peace.